let me go to the world of work here. A couple of trends I see and observe. First and foremost, globalization. And they will impact HR. I think there are two things on globalization. On one hand, we see a drive, I think, politically, socio-politically, actually on localization. If you look in many markets, there's a drive for localization. And it challenges a little bit the concept of globalization and the reputation of globalization as well. So many countries are demanding to understand, what does your company do locally? We don't care about globalization. What do you do for us locally? And I think for HR, this is something to reflect upon as well, in terms of how many people do we employ, how do we pay them, how do we treat them, but also broader, I would say, what is our impact on the total supply chain? If you look, for example, in many of our businesses where we have potato chip businesses, we have a deep reach in agriculture. So we have a lot of people who work in agriculture, farming potatoes, and what do we do in the total supply chain? So not only in your company, but basically in the agro side, but also in people who sell our products through distributors. That local relevance is becoming super important in my opinion. Now, having said that, globalization is here to stay. From an employment point of view, From an employment point of view, I think it's here to stay, and that's driven by technology. It is not necessary anymore to be in a market to be part of a company or to do a job. It's completely outdated, the concept that you have to be in an office or that you have to be in a certain country to do a job. We have many of our employees who are working simply in different locations for our company. So this whole idea of globalization of work, I think, will be there, whilst I think there will be still this need for proving what you do actually as a local employer. The second drive is technology. I mean, I'm sure that we will talk about it. I think Unilever will talk about AI, but technology is a big thing. And we see that in our business as well. If you look at our factories, there's a lot of technology happening, automation of working processes. The same in our warehouses. And this will stay. And there is a negative side potentially there, which is displacement of roles. So a lot of old roles are disappearing, and we have to deal with that in terms of reskilling and in terms of finding new roles for people in the company. But there is a positive side to this as well. If you look at new professions starting, e-commerce, digital skills, analytics, AI, and all these skills are being built. And at this moment, I think this is a fantastic balance between the two. Now, the jury is out who's going to win. Are the new professions going to win? We have surplus roles in the new professions, or will there be more displacement of labor? At this moment, I think our belief is that there will be more displacement of roles versus the recreation of new roles. So we see it more as a daunting side which we have to deal with as well. But technology will be pervasive and will play in every profession, including HR. The third trend I see will continue to be mobility. I mean, technology in terms of 5G, in terms of mobile, is also pervasive. People don't need to come to the office. And we will be challenged, and you see that in many of the markets already, that people don't want to come every day to the office. You can work anywhere, anytime, and it's a very different working pattern than what people have seen in the past, that you have to come to the office, you have a 9-to-5 role or perhaps an 8-to-6 role. People want to work when they want to work, and it can be in the evening, it can be in the night, it can be in the early morning, and they don't need to come to the office. And we need to learn to deal with that. I think we're still in transition in many companies, how to deal with that and why are people not at the company. And we have that in our own business as well. If we are in New York, many times we are saying, there's so many few people in the office. And it creates a kind of level of discomfort with your old model. But people are simply working. They're not working in your office necessarily. The last two trends, west to east. I mean, what's happening clearly is still move an economic wealth from the west to the east, from the US and Europe predominantly to Asia Pacific and Africa at this moment in time. The largest employment population growth will happen in these two areas. And you see economic migration, and you see our businesses moving there as well, but you still see jobs as well. Still shared services and what's happening around shared services are prevalent in specifically India. And there's an enormous migration of roles from the Western world to specifically India, but also other areas in Asia where new jobs are being created. I don't think that will stop anytime soon. I think this will continue, and we have to find a solution for that as well. And then finally, multiple generations will be at work. I mean, everybody probably knows about the book, The 100-Year Life, yeah? I mean, we know that we will not retire anymore at 60. No, that is highly unlikely, and that most people will have to work longer than 60. And with a life expectancy where more and more people will get older, we will simply have to find a solution where multiple generations work in this company. So we have an obsession with millennials, and we have an obsession now growing with Gen Z. But reality is that we will have to develop, in my opinion, an obsession with people who are also 65 plus. Yeah? They will be in our company, and that we have to have an EVP, a proposition which is exciting for them, rather than see this as an issue or a problem. And I think this is a rethinking of how do the category of 65 plus, how will they operate with Gen Z and with the other categories. This is a new reality I think we have to learn to work with. So these are some of the trends I observe in the international side and in society. Now, what does it mean for HR? First and foremost, if you think about a 100-year life, or if you think about the retirement age of 75 or 80, I think we need to rethink our career models, yeah? Because the idea that you basically have a couple of phases in your life, you have this study life, you have 30 years of work, and then you have, let's say, 25 or hopefully 35 or 40 years of retirement, is simply not going to happen. So we need to rethink, how do I build a career? And most of the beliefs is that probably it's not going to be one career with one company or one career with one institutions. That people have to refresh themselves throughout their life, throughout their career, in terms of new learnings, new capabilities, and build new things. Perhaps go from a company to a charity organization or go to an institute, but not necessarily with one company. So this concept of one career with one type of way of working, I think will be challenged moving forward. And I don't think HR has grappled with that at this moment in time. We're still thinking classically around how to build careers in our company. I think the second trend we are seeing is a very different way of working. I mean, we are saying in our company there is an end to our functional model. We've achieved everything we could do with the functional model. The next way of working is all cross-functional. Now, everybody talks about agile, which is a very popular word, but agile will be part of that solution. Agile, I always say, you have large agile and small agile. Large agile is, everybody talks about it, it's okay, let's be nimble, let's be quick, let's be simple in our approach. Small agile is really the adoption of agile practices. So it means we work in cross-functional teams, we are co-located, we work with agile standards and practices and rituals. That will become more pervasive. And that's very different from how specifically large companies work, where still functional models work. Younger people don't want to work anymore in a functional organization. They want to be working in a company which is cross-functional, quick, fun, easy to work with, and not this continuous drive towards functional optimization. So this experimentation with agile practices, I think, is super important for us. The third one, which probably hangs together a little bit with the first one around career models, is this continuous learning and reskilling. If you have a career which spans a longer lifespan, you better keep on educating yourself. And my advice to you as HR professionals is this is controversial perhaps for the people in the room, but get rid of all the HR books for now, yeah? And get rid of all the management books and leadership books, because I think they're largely irrelevant for the coming years. Double down on skilling yourself in digital, truly skilling yourself in digital. Understand really what AI means, understand what machine learning means, understand what analytics means, in depth, not superficial, in depth, because it will be part of every company, every profession, including the HR profession. And you have to understand it much deeper than I think at this moment most people do. So they know it superficially, but you really need to understand it in depth. And Jim, a colleague of mine, and I were meeting with 3 startups yesterday, and it struck us that we can talk with the startups to a certain level about the experience and how it will look like, but when they start talking about AI and algorithms, we got completely lost. Yeah? We didn't know what they were talking about. Yeah? And I think it was an awareness for myself that we have to get deep into this, much deeper than we do at this moment in time. Yeah? So continuous learning and reskilling. Now finally, 2 other things. Brand with purpose and employee experience. Brand with purpose, and I think Galit will talk about the SodaStream company, which I think is an amazing company around brand with purpose. It is super important. People will want to join companies which have a greater purpose, which have a soul, which have a greater good. They're doing something for society which is beyond good financial housekeeping, good financial performance. What is the real reason why you are here on this planet? What are you contributing to society? These questions are super important. And I think companies who do this well, and this is not charts on a wall, it is having a clarity around what your purpose is, having a clarity around your behaviors, but living that on a day-to-day basis, that a leader continuously demonstrates consistency with the behaviors and the vision and the mission of the company. That behavioral consistency with many examples is super important. And specifically, we know that for the younger people that it's important, but I think it's not only younger people. I think more and more generations feeling this need to say, what do you contribute to society and what is your greater good? So linking everything, your brand, your external brand, your internal EVP, your leadership behaviors, and then having behavioral consistency of everybody in the company, but specifically your leadership group, I think is super important for the future if you want to play and attract the best people in your environment. And then finally, let me talk and close out on employee experience. I mean, and this is a little bit of a call to the HR profession to rethink their role on employee experience. My view is that we disappoint our employees around the experience we have. And in general, if I say, let me take one example, a perfect first day with a company. Isn't it logical that as an employee, start with a company that's perfect? You get your notebook, your PC, you get your mobile phone, you get your badge, your security badge on time, your computer is loaded with the productivity apps we had agreed. That is an experience which you assume every company should have delivered upon, and is easy. Reality is that on that simple experience, most companies fail. Most companies are not successful in creating a fantastic first experience for their employees. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is twofold. One, I think we've lost a little bit as HR the passion around some of the basics. But most important, the employee experience is a cross-functional experience. It's not driven by HR processes alone. It's driven by IT, it's driven by finance, it's driven by office management, and nobody takes ownership cross-functionally for this experience. And my appeal to the HR function is that this is actually what we should double down on. Really take ownership for the cross-functional employee experience of our company. And I would say that includes the way we structure our offices. So I believe that HR should take ownership for office management in terms of office design and the experience. But I think more important in the future, I think people will not experience the company necessarily through a physical lens, the offices, but very much through a digital lens. So how cool and how good is that digital experience? Starting with the portal, the entry of many employees into the company. How many HR folks feel ownership for the portal in the company? Most of the times it sits with internal communications or the IT function. I would argue that HR should own the portal design and should feel that that's their responsibility. I should argue that not only the portal design, but every touch point with the employees should be owned by HR. And that is perfect first day, as I mentioned, but it's also transfers. It's how procurement interfaces with the employees. It's how finance interfaces with the employees. It's how IT interfaces with the employees. I think this is a new call for action for HR to own this cross-functionally and double down on the digital experience specifically for our employees. Now that's a very different skill for HR because it requires you to bring the functions together and take ownership for this and lead the other functions. It requires you to think through what is that experience on the critical touch points and then rebuild all the functional processes to deliver upon this. And it requires HR to build skills in digital, truly build skills in digital to understand how are portals designed and how can you create fantastic solutions. It requires HR to understand AI solutions. It requires HR, as I said before, to double down on digital skills. So for me, these are the big changes in HR. And I would really appeal specifically around this employee experience to think through what could be my role, because this is not traditional HR, but I think it's super important. If you want to recruit, in my opinion, the best and the brightest in the future, specifically young talent, you better deliver a very cool digital experience. I think it's an absolute must for you as an employer. So that's it. I have no more magic. That's my view on what's happening in the world, and that's my view on what will happen for HR. Thank you.